We are now joined by Kevin Lings, the chief economist at Stanlib, to talk more about what to expect from Moody's ratings agency tonight on South Africa's rating going forward. Thank you very much, Kevin, for joining us. Let's start here. Remind us why it is so important for ordinary South Africans that the country's rating is in investment grade. Why should blue-collar workers even care at all what happens?
I think that's a valid question because obviously it's an indirect relationship. Most people don't see a direct benefit, but it's absolutely crucial. And the reason is, think about it as this is our international credit rating, how trustworthy we are regarded by international investors. And obviously, the better your credit rating, the higher your credit rating, then you have an easier or a much more likelihood of attracting foreign investment. And South Africa desperately needs all the investment we can get, both local and foreign. And so the better your credit rating, you tend to attract foreign investment. As foreign investment comes into the country, it helps to grow the economy, it helps to create jobs, and it also makes the cost of money cheaper. So the better your credit rating in general, the cost of funding a project, the cost of building a electricity plant, whatever it is, it tends to be cheaper. So there are quite a few important implications. What then happens is once you get that benefit, it should feed through to the economy more broadly, and that everybody ultimately benefits from it. But I can understand that if you're sitting working in a particular manufacturing sector, you can't quite see that link. It's not that clear, but it's absolutely crucial.
Kevin, South Africa is in sub-investment grade, what we usually call, a junk status right now across all these ratings agencies, with some saying that, well, the one at Moody's is much better. Talk to us about, what you really expect from Moody's tonight, because as experts have said, it could take 5 to 7 years for a grading to change on a country.
That's right. Generally, rating agencies are very quick to downgrade you, but they take their time in upgrading you. And obviously, they want to see that you've made significant progress before they upgrade you. In other words, they want to be sure that the progress is sound and that the progress will continue. So it's going to take us a couple of years to get our credit rating back to investment grade. It's hard to say how long, maybe 5 years. That's entirely feasible. I think in the short term, as in tonight, what I'm hoping is that Moody's acknowledges the progress that we've been making over the last year or two, that our government finances is moving into a better position. We had significant tax revenue collection last year, and the government used that effectively to reduce government debt. So I'm expecting that the rating agency will acknowledge some of the progress we've made. Obviously, there are still some problems in terms of low growth, high unemployment, and the rating agency will flag those as significant concerns, particularly the concern that social tension in South Africa could pick up again and it could result in more social protest, and that's something the rating agencies would be concerned about. But I think overall we've made enough progress for them to suggest that the outlook for South Africa is improving. I don't think they're about to upgrade us. I don't think we're going to get a credit rating upgrade tonight, but I think they will acknowledge that the progress has been good and that if the progress continues, then we would expect to see some sort of ratings revision.
Kevin, as you said, there are a couple of things that ratings agencies look at, and you touched on revenue collection. And as you heard today, record revenue collection by SARS higher than expected at 1.56 trillion rand. Does this or will this have any bearing on what the agency is looking at in terms of determining the country's rating?
It has a huge impact, and it's very beneficial because obviously the more tax revenue collecting, the more you're able to put government finance into better shape. Obviously, it becomes quite important what you do with that additional tax revenue. If you simply squander it, then it doesn't help you. In our case, we've used that tax revenue, I think, fairly wisely. We've been able to pay for some critical stuff like the extension of the social grants, but we've also used some of that to reduce the debt of government. So I think we've used it wisely. It's also clear that the revenue services in South African SARS is in better shape. They're able to collect money more effectively. They've made substantial progress in improving that organization, and that also helps. So yeah, it's an absolutely critical positive for South Africa.
Let's talk about the South African economy. It advanced by 4.9% in 2021, and the forecasts are that for 2022, this will be hovering around 2%. Moodys will be looking at this as slow pace of growth and looking also at the structural reforms that they've been talking about. We've seen some good news when it comes to the auctioning of spectrum and also Eskom really giving that power generation to private players. How do you think we've fared when it comes to what Moodys has said in terms of structural reforms and what they might say about the forecast for economic growth in the country?
So yes, we had a decent recovery last year. Obviously, that recovery should ideally have been stronger. We're not quite back at the level of economic activity that we had before COVID, so we've got a little way to go before we fully recovered. But I think by the end of this year, we'll be back at that level. 2% growth is obviously not strong enough for South Africa, and the reason is it doesn't lead to enough job creation. We've got to be creating hundreds of thousands of jobs in a year, and then we start to make a difference. And obviously, if you're growing at 2%, you're unable to do that. Now, there are some reasons why we're not growing faster. One of it is things like electricity shortages and general infrastructure backlogs. And the other is obviously it's been difficult to do business in this country. People have lost confidence. But you would have to expect that Moodys will acknowledge some of the progress. We've moved ahead with reforming the energy sector. The use of independent power producers, I think, is being more effective. The fact that we are moving the transmission component of Eskom into a separate entity, I think that is a positive development. As you mentioned, the spectrum auction, I thought, was very successful. Government raised, I can't remember, something like 15 billion rand. That helps government revenue. Plus, you would expect to see additional investment on the back of that spectrum auction. So that's encouraging. We clearly want to be able to move the Port Authority out of Transnet and get private sector involved in the upgrading of our ports, particularly Pier 2 in Durban. That's a positive development. And if you look at the policy stance from government, it is about trying to lift infrastructure. I expect all of those positives will be acknowledged by the rating agencies, and it contributes to a better outlook going forward. That doesn't mean that we're in a great growth position or that we don't have a big unemployment problem. Those are very clear obstacles. But we have made important progress, and hopefully we can build on that.
Kevin, a further downgrade is not out of the picture. Obviously, we are hoping that they will look at all the progress that South Africa has made. But what happens? What are the ramifications of South Africa being downgraded further into that sub-investment grade status?
So if we did get downgraded, then obviously that would have negative implications for the cost of borrowing money. It would probably have negative implications for the exchange rate. And it would make generally our ability to lift our economy much more challenging. We can see from the President's investment conferences that we desperately need all the investment we can get. A key part of that is foreign investment. And as your credit rating goes down, it becomes more difficult to get those investors to commit to the country. Investors like to go to countries that are considered safe, that are considered credit-worthy. And in order to get that, you need to have an investment-grade credit rating. So it would be a big step backwards. I'm not expecting that to happen. I think we've made enough progress that we can avoid any further credit rating downgrades. But given the high unemployment, given the risk of social unrest, I don't think we're quite in a position to expect an upgrade at this stage.